السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فَلَا اقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةَ. Yet he has not attempted the steep path. Man, he thinks that he has done such a big deal by spending so much money, but the reality is he has done nothing because he has not broken through the difficult path. Ikhtahama from Qaf Hamim. Ikhtiham is to storm, to rush into a place. So basically, to rush into a place quickly without even looking, without giving any thought, and to involve yourself in a task that will involve a lot of hard work, only to realize later that it is exhausting. To add to that, once you have committed yourself to this task, there is no backing out. Like, putting together furniture, you think you can do it, but then it starts getting really difficult, and then you realize at the halfway point that this is tougher than you thought first. And the word aqaba refers to a narrow, difficult, steep path that is between mountains. So a path heading up a mountain range, and so it is almost synonymous with the word which we learned previously, that is najd, except that the word aqaba, it means a path that is very difficult to climb. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown us two paths, one of which is not just najd but also aqaba. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that after showing man the two paths, what did man choose? He chose not to commit himself to the hard path. Now the first word used in the ayah is la, and it comes before the word ikhtahama, which is in the past tense. Now ma would have actually been a normal expected negative particle which will come before a past tense. La is not typically used with past tense. If la is used, actually the normal usage would be la yakhtahimu, but here it is la ikhtahama. So there are certain subtle implications captured in the change in this just one word. Some scholars, they say that la can also imply a dua, rendering the meaning why didn't he, as in why didn't man climb the tougher path. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given man eyes and the ability to do so. Why didn't he climb the steep path then? Thus the fa-la actually has the meaning of limadha, why. Almost as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is complaining that the human being, he did not jump right in and take up the struggle. As if, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us a challenge to engage in the struggle. And other scholars, they comment that this path is the path to salvation, and there is an indication given at the end of the surah as to what you will see when you start reaching the top of this path. So, فَلَقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he created man in hardship. Man was supposed to do what was extraordinarily difficult, but he did not do that. Instead, man wants comfort in this life. He's always looking for shortcuts, looking to fulfill his desires, not what is the need of the hour. And seriously, look at man. We feel so proud when we accomplish something worldly. For example, I got this degree. I worked so hard all these years. I've spent so many hours every single day. Wow. Look at my results. Look at, the results of my hard work. فَلَقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةَ. You were not created for this. See, it's not like getting a degree is useless or buying something that you like is useless. All that is fine. It's good, alhamdulillah. But this is not what you were made for. You were made for Allah's mercy. You are made for Jannah. You are not made so that you could achieve a house in this dunya. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةَ. And what will make you know what the steep path is? Now in the Quran we find both وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ and وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ. Now the former, it is the past tense, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ. And the latter one, it's the present tense, yudrika. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he asks in the past tense here, what would have given any clue as to what that steep path is? And whenever the question is asked in the past tense, information is given. But when the question is asked in the present tense, it's not. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he does not inform us of when the final hour will come. So the word adraka being used here, it is a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it means that Allah will teach us what this path is, because if we did not know, we would never be able to attempt it. So, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةُ, and what will make you know what is breaking through the difficult path? So, what is it that we should really be doing in our lives? What is it that truly matters? Is it that we cook the perfect meal, or that we got a degree after studying for so many number of years, or that we got married and had children and our children are living happily married lives, or that we established a successful career or a business? Is that really success? No. What is real success? What is it that we must push ourselves to do, push ourselves to endure? Allah says, Fakku raqaba. It is the freeing of a slave. If you do that, then that is great. That is something you've accomplished, because you're not being selfishly concerned about yourself alone. You have benefited somebody else, and this is something that will benefit you in the hereafter. You see, when we spend a lot of money, there comes with that a lot of pride that, oh, I was actually able to afford this. I bought a palatial house. I bought this expensive car, I can afford this kind of a lifestyle. Now that is not real achievement. Real achievement, Allah SWT is teaching us here. It is things like Fakku raqaba. Fakku, fa kaf kaf. It is to set free. And the word raqaba, it literally means the back of the neck. And the imagery here is of a chain tied around the neck. If the chain is pulled from the front, then the person in chains will have to follow his master. And if the chain is pulled from behind, however, what happens? The slave is choked, and this depicts the pain of being a slave. Now, in Islamic literature, slavery is mentioned in two ways. First, it's literal or physical slavery, and secondly, the slavery of a debt, which is also like a chokehold on someone. Now, notice that the first word, fakku, it is in the nominal form. It is not the verbal form. So what does the nominal form imply? Something which is continuous. So it implies commitment in freeing a slave. Whereas if the verbal form, was used, it would mean one has freed a slave only once. So the commitment is manifested in committing oneself to freeing slaves. And this was very difficult. In a society where slaves were not even regarded as human beings, this was something great. Again, remember, this is a Makki surah. And what are the teachings given right at the beginning? Is it that you have to, go pray Salah 5 times a day, or that you have to go for Hajj, or the details of Zakat? No, all that came later in Medina. In Makkah, what was emphasized was civil rights or helping the needy. So here we are being taught that if you want to climb the right path, then become committed to freeing the slave. The Arabs, they took a lot of pride in wasting money, but at the same time, they were human beings who could be set free so that they could live normal lives. But setting them free, letting them go, was something that they could never even think about. This ayah is an apt response to critics of Islam who question why Islam endorses slavery, whereas the truth is that Islam systematically abolished the institution of slavery. In a hadith we learn, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever flees a believing slave, Allah will free for every limb one of his limbs from the fire. أو إطعام في يوم ذي مسغبة, to feed at a time of hunger. Now in the previous surah, we read about selfish people, and the first act of climbing the mountain is to become selfless. In the Quran, there are specifically 4 words used for hunger. And what is the word used here? It is masghaba, which refers to widespread hunger. In our times, this may be referred to as famine or even bad economic times. Allah SWT is saying that this mountain is tough to climb because you have to feed and be committed to feeding. Because notice the word here is the word used here is it'amun. It's the nominal form. It's not at'ama or yut'imu. So a timeless commitment of feeding the needy. And furthermore, this feeding, when must it occur? Especially yawmin dhi masghaba. Masghaba, when no one has anything to eat, everyone's out of food. In such a situation, when even you are hungry and you get some food, at that time, you're not just thinking of yourself, I should go somewhere and hide and eat this. No, you give it to the hungry. And what does that mean? That there's going to be nothing left for you. So the previous surah, it taught us that kufr, it leads to corruption in the cities. And here Allah SWT is instructing us to oppose this corruption by being selfless and helping the weak and oppressed. Yatiman dha maqraba, feeding an orphan of near relationship. Now, da maqraba, it does not only refer to an orphan related to you, but also the orphan who is in close proximity to you. That is the orphan in your community or neighborhood. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages the kind treatment of orphans, and this is almost a response to the ayah in the previous surah, which reprimands those who do not honor the orphans. Kalla bal la tukrimun al-yatim. Nay, but not you honor the orphan. So why feeding an orphan on a day of hunger? Because on such a day, who would care about an orphan? Now, this ayah, even a disbeliever can relate to, because this address is to the insan in general. It is not specifically to the believers. Aw miskinan za matraba, or feeding a needy person who is in misery. The word miskin, it comes from maskana, and it is used in many places in the Quran. One of the ways it has been defined is as someone who barely has the life essentials to survive, like assets or savings and maybe even a home, but somehow they still survive. The kind of person who, when you meet them, it causes you to wonder, how can they possibly survive like this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this needy person, dha matraba, is one who is covered in mud or dust because of his poverty. How can a person be covered in mud when he doesn't have proper clothes to wear, when he has no home to take a shower in, he has no soap, no bed to lie on, no chair to sit, and no place to call home? He's been traveling for weeks and months. He's displaced for so long. So what this alludes to is that firstly, this person, if he had a home, he would not be covered in dust. Secondly, he is going around looking for food, which causes him to get covered in dust. And thirdly, his bed is dust, and so naturally when he gets up, he's covered in dust. This poor person walks around without a home, barely surviving. This is the response to the verse in the previous surah, which discussed not just those who do not feed the needy, but also those who do not encourage others to feed them. وَلَا تَحَاضُونَ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ ثُمَّ كَانَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْمَرْحَمَةِ. Then he becomes of those who believe and who urge one another to patience and advise one another to compassion. There are many charitable organizations that work to feed and provide for the poor, the hungry and homeless. May Allah reward them all. However, despite their efforts, year on year, the scale of the problem is only increasing. Feeding the orphan, sponsoring an orphan's education, helping him for medical purposes. These are all problems in our society that have always been there. And the previous surah, Surah Fajr, in fact, informed us that this happens. Why? Because people have caused corruption by rebelling against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, although humanitarian work is essential, what is the most effective way to deal with this problem? This problem of corruption and inequality, it is to strike at the heart of the problem and return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this is why, after mentioning the freeing of slaves and then giving to the orphans and the needy, Iman is discussed. Also, for a person's deeds to continue in the hereafter, to mean something in the hereafter, a person must fulfill the condition of Iman. We learn this in the Quran in Surah Isra, ayah 19. وَمَنْ أَرَادَ الْآخِرَةَ وَسَعَى لَهَا سَعْيَهَا وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ فَأُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ سَعْيُهُمْ مَشْكُورًا. But whoever desires the hereafter and strives for it accordingly and is a true believer, it is they whose striving will be appreciated. In Surah Nur, ayah 55, we learn that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says about the believers that He will establish them in the earth and He will replace for them after fear peace and safety. This is because belief and safety are connected, and when you turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will send His blessings from the sky, and by His justice and revelation create a society in which these problems are properly dealt with. And this is proven through the lives of the famous Khulafa al-Rashidin, especially the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. All this justice and enrichment of society was due to one thing, Iman. It was guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and its implementation. Now the word wasiyya, it means to leave a will or a legacy. And tawasi is to advise, to motivate, encourage and counsel one another. So they have now become believers. but the situation still seems hopeless. So they have to advise and counsel one another to keep each other motivated and patient. The word sabr captures 4 different attributes in the English language: patience, commitment, consistency, and constancy. So no matter how hard something might be or how great the challenge, these people, they continue to advise each other in persevering in this cause. The task of climbing this hill is difficult and one may lose hope, and so you need someone to encourage you. It is almost like saying to one another, "Come on, we can do it. Let's stay firm. The reward is great." The disbelievers, they were too lazy to climb the steep path, and they did not have the self-restraint to prevent themselves from indulging in their desires. The word rahma, it means mercy, but the word used here, marhama, it is an extremely powerful mercy that goes in every direction. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that you can only be a true humanitarian if you prefer others over yourself constantly with iman. Thus, these people, they encourage each other for the sake of universal mercy, as having iman means that you have mercy for mankind as a whole. But real mercy, however, it is not just caring for people's welfare in this life. It is also caring for their welfare in the next life. And how is this done? By encouraging each other to Islam and to stay committed in Islam. So the one who wants to meet Allah happy while he is happy and he has pleased Allah should use their time well. And how can he do this? By using the blessings, the resources that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him to do what really matters. The aqaba, the difficult path. And what is it that really matters? The actions that are mentioned over here. Ulaika ashabul maimana. Those are the companions of the right. So these are the people who are going to be on the right side, who will dwell in Jannah and who will have their books given in their right hand. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِنَا hum ashabul mash'ama. But those who disbelieved in our signs, those are the companions of the left. So far, there has been no discussion on revelation in the entire surah. Most of the surah has been about al-aqaba and humanitarian work, with a little mention of iman. But now the root cause of all this is given. It is disbelief in the miraculous signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Often when one thinks of iman, they think of iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this surah is highlighting iman in something else. Iman in the revelations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the Quran. This is because the revelation of Allah, that is what truly guides to solving the problems of humanity. Those people who are in disbelief of this guidance, who are in kufr, they will continue to experience corruption in the land. The word mashhama in Arabic, it means the overwhelming curse. Thus Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that those who disbelieve in his miraculous signs are people associated with the curse or the left side, as mashama also means the left hand side. And you know, the Arabs, they consider things associated with the left hand side as a cursed or wild thing, and this is something that has continued even in the Islamic tradition. For example, we Muslims, for purification, we use the left hand, and we use the right hand for things which are good and blessed. And this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and perhaps it might be, that the Arabs, they got this tradition originally from their father Ibrahim alayhi salam. Alayhim naru mu'sada. Over them will be fire that is mu'sada, that is closed in. Isad or wasid, it refers to an entrance. وَكَلْبُهُمْ بَاسِطٌ ذِرَاعَيْهِ بِالْوَسِيدِ in Surah Kahf. Wasad means to seal something with another thing on top. For example, placing a lid on a cooking pot so that the steam does not escape. It is also used to describe closing the door on a room that has no other escape. So the imagery therefore given here is of a fire from which there is no escape and which in addition is sealed so that the heat of the fire does not escape, thereby intensifying further the heat inside. In the beginning of the surah, we learned that man is created in toil, in kabad, in this dunya. And at the end, we learn that if he does not do the right thing and he does not toil for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is a far worse kabad, far worse toil coming which will last forever. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from the fire and enter us directly into Jannah. We end with the surah. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.